I can hear you. Okay,
You can hear him.
Oh, she's reading his lips.
yep, I can hear that he's talking, and he told me earlier he can hear us. I wasn't here yesterday and they used this system and then I don't know what they do.
Oh, boy. Wouldn't be the volume on the TV they turned way down,
It's-
did it?
no,
Oh, you did that
that's-
already?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Click down, arrow next to mic. It is set to TV speaker.
What's that?
He emailed.
If you click it down, it makes- That's why I usually have it on as a TV speaker.
Well, show the speaker again, it says speaker USB.
Yeah.
Or, right,
Wow.
it says USB,
Oh,
how do you change it? There you go, maybe. Hit the box up top, where it
oh, there
says,
we go. And Chad wanted to be tacky. Look at him go.
hey, we're not done yet.
Go up, wait, I think you need to go up one more, didn't you?
Speak it, boys.
How about now?
Still not this.
We're getting there.
We can see your lips moving.
Oh, it's got an X mark on the
Hold on,
volume now.
Yeah,
hold on,
now
hold
it
on,
does.
this one.
Hello?
Oh,
Check 1, 2.
we got you.
Would it be all right
Hey,
if I
excellent.
sit up closer so then I can get the screen
Yeah,
also?
that's fine.
Okay,
Yep.
Just so your cord's not blocking the doorway.
yeah, I don't have a cord out.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Woo-hoo.
Good job.
Somebody used the system yesterday and they don't put, always, there's a note, put it back the way you found it.
Thomas, I think you should mute when you're not speaking because your feedback from your office is.
Yeah, so,
Okay, now you're good.
The feedback's gone, yeah. Can you guys hear Thomas okay?
Yes, we did.
We did.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, I see we are 8:03 already, so we will get going. Okay, call the meeting to order. I guess we'll, we should have 2 sets of minutes, don't we?
Yep.
Okay, somebody wanna make a motion to approve the February minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Approval for the, March 4th meeting minutes, that would be for when we met with the commissioners last week. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, open mic, Gary, you have anything at this point in time?
I'd like to reserve my time for another point in the meeting.
Okay, alrighty, with that, we'll move into old business, Hertzfield, project updates. Nothing there, is there, Thomas?
Yeah, he's got that form.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yep.
Except for, I did send, a letter to kind of the annual report to be sent on to the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. Just kind of an overview of that, year's operation. You might be kind of,
Thomas, it sounds like you're talking in a tunnel.
Yeah, boy, I can't understand them at all.
So that letter in your packet, Mark,
Can
Peter
you
West.
understand me now?
There, per better.
There.
Okay. Yeah, the old speaker and everything that I used to use doesn't work anymore, and then this has a lot of feedback from my computer fan. So did a little bit with that, but I guess you can understand me. So yeah, I did send a overview letter from the 2024 season of the operation. That letter gets sent on to the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. I can go over just a quick summary if you would like me to.
Sure.
And then you can send that on to the DEQ.
Yep.
So total days of operation of when the pumps were operating at the Hertzfield legal drain was 42 days. That started May 28th. It was operated on and off until July 19th, and at that point there was not enough precipitation to operate the pumps again. The average pump rate was 3.6 CFS, and that equaled about 97 million gallons, which is about 300 acre feet. The difference from last year to previous years was the fact that the sulfate levels upstream of the James River, where the tributary that this drain drains into, it was always higher than that class 3 tributary that this legal drain drains into. So there was conversations with the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality throughout that process. They gave us guidance, and that's how the district operated those. And that's spelled out in that letter. And as reference to the 2023 season, it operated approximately 10 more days last year than the 2023 season.
Okay. What were their thoughts with the sulfate levels being, so high on the 10th Street location versus our two testing sites? Because they're more than double of what our two tests are, roughly. Let's see here. Yeah, they're more than double well, at times anyway.
Yep. And they took that into consideration with that downstream monitoring station on Old Highway 52.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the guidance they gave us, was to operate and keep a close eye on it, and that's what the district did.
Mm-hmm.
And in the near future, and then the next operating year and the year after, I think it's a good point to give the Department of Environmental Quality to let them know that that is happening. And to hopefully change some of the levels that can be operated at. So I think it's going to be a process of gaining information and using that information to prove that it's not making a huge effect at that location.
Actually, we're benefiting them.
Yep. So.
By a lot. So,
Yep.
okay.
Is there, when can something like this get started with conversation with DEQ? Any thoughts, or, I mean, how many more years do we gotta go on like this? And
It's already, I guess it's already in the process of happening. They understand. So last year's operation was mostly due to, or the bumpers, I guess, of operation last year was that class 3 tributary, is what it came down to when looking at it. So once that reached the levels, then that's when the pump operation was stopped. In other years, it was the other location. Looking at the data.
Will some of the federal deregulation have any effect on this at all?
I don't believe so. I think this is mostly state level.
Okay.
These are state statutes, yep.
Okay, but obviously we were able to run it longer, you know, because of working with them with this anyway, so. And you haven't looked this year what the sulfate levels are in that, class 3 tributary yet, have you, on 9th Street there?
I have not, and there was some, that subscription ended and there was just a little bit of, back and forth on that. I haven't gotten access to that yet on the cell.
Okay,
That's being taken care of.
okay, alrighty, so,
I guess, has anybody seen much water flow?
I was
in the area?
down there on Monday, and, you know, it was hard to tell that day because it was so windy, is the water running, or is the wind just pushing it around? But there's hardly any water down there. Yeah, I was quite shocked.
Almost over with already now.
Yeah, it all depends on what we get this weekend, I guess.
Yep.
So, oh, okay. So, well, anything else on that, Thomas?
Nope, that's it, and then, I'll have Tammy send this to the Department of Environmental Quality. Yeah, it's a board blank.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. I see the loan at First International Bank is paid off, huh?
Where's our projects?
Okay.
Now we just owe the general fund 300 and some thousand. But I wanted to pay off the bank one first because that's interest, 5% interest.
Yep, okay. Yeah, we'll have to, do you have a mortgage burning party, huh? So,
Not quite yet.
yeah, no, that'll help when it starts coming back into the general fund too. So, okay, 55th Crossing, I don't think, Kale, you haven't heard anything, have you?
No, the judge still has the briefs under advisement, so as soon as we get a decision, we'll forward it on.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else that we need to deal with that at this point in time either. So, okay, Gary Hines' complaint. I was out there, took pictures on Monday. And Kale, I guess we just, I guess I could update you guys. I stopped in there on Monday and took some pictures. I think you have them in your packet, correct?
Yeah.
Everything's in the packet.
Yep, okay, and, it is definitely is closed up, across there. So, I guess as far as this goes, Kale, we just need a motion to,
Yeah, so the complaint deadline we have to act is by March 21st, so this is really our last meeting to act. The board, I think, has had a chance to see the photos. You've heard Larry's report that the drain is no longer open, so to the extent that there was a non-compliant drain there isn't presently a non-compliant drain there, according to Larry. And if the board agrees with that, then I think the step in the Century Code is to dismiss the complaint, and then any party aggrieved by that dismissal has a right to appeal that to the Department of Water Resources if they so wish. So I prepared and sent to Tammy and Larry just some very basic draft findings in an order dismissing the complaint, detailing out the procedure and what had happened up to this point, and then included in there reference to the photos that were received in November, and then also the photos that Larry circulated yesterday. So Tammy, did that make it around to the board?
Yes, they all have it.
Okay, so I can certainly review any part of this if the board wishes, but otherwise, if the board is ready to act and believes that dismissal is the appropriate next step, we just need a motion to approve the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order as presented.
I guess I'll call for a motion at this point in time.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll
second.
Okay, any discussion? Any discussion? No discussion, I guess we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor of, the dismissal order, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Tim, if you email me the signed findings order, we can get a notice of decision issued out.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I would like a copy of all that paperwork.
You will, by statute, Gary, we have to send it to you, by certified mail, so we'll do that.
When will that happen?
It probably will go out today.
Thank you.
okay, moving on, Lowen complaint, those guys are coming in at 8:30. Hauk's complaint is tabled until May. I had contacted Jeff Mertz about that, and he was in Arizona, so he couldn't go out to look to see if, the snow was down and gone enough that we could go out and take care of that or not, so I guess we'll just leave that on the agenda for the next meeting. Any updates on, Senate bill, well, it's not 2372, 2276, I think it is now, and 1218.
Yeah. Yep, so I can touch on that, and basically I don't have much more of an update from the email I sent a few days ago. But Senate Bill 2276 is an extension of the Senate Bill 2372 from 2023. So Senate Bill 2372 from 2023 is the one that said all water resource districts have to join the major drainage basin joint boards that touch their district, and then approve a 2 mil levy for funding that joint board. And then later in the appropriations bill that year, they took out the requirement to pay that 2 mil levy to the joint board. 2276 is kind of an extension of that said you have to join a joint board, plus if there's a project that crosses more than one county and the counties can't agree, then you can take it to that drainage basin board, and they will can go forward, have the authority to go forward with that project and assess land in both counties. Then they changed the description in this bill of the joint boards. They narrowed them down to what's called the Huck 8 watershed. So they expanded the number of joint boards that exist, but the bill didn't change the description from 2023 of those joint boards. So now we have in code proposed, if this were to pass, two separate sections of what the joint boards are. So based on the board's instruction at the last meeting, I worked last week pretty intensely with Jack Dwyer, Danny Quizzle, Sean Fredericks, to come up with some language to take to Senator Lewick and the DWR to drill this down to a project level, to say, if there's a dispute between two counties over management of a project that benefits both counties, rather than take it to a basin that involves a bunch of board members who aren't involved, at the project level, you go to the other county and you say, we have this cross-county project. That county has a chance to participate. If they don't, then the originating county can go forward with the project and can assess those lands in the other county and send that to the auditor and have the auditor collect the levy. Then an enforcement mechanism is being added to say, if the other county doesn't cooperate and you have to go to court in order to get them to follow the law, then if you're successful, that county would be responsible for the court costs and attorney's fees of coming into compliance. And then the pitch to the legislators is going to say, we understand what you're trying to do, managing water on a watershed basis, but to do that, you really need to have in statute information about how those managers are selected, how that watershed district is funded, what authorities they have. And these bills from 2023 and 2025 don't do any of that, and it's just gonna, cause chaos. And so, let's study that And if you really wanna work on watershed management, let's study it and do it the right way. Now, the hurdle is, if they passed that, this would be the third time they've studied it. But when they studied it between the last two sessions, they really didn't spend a lot of time on how to convert from county to watershed management. They spent a lot of time on federal issues like Fish and Wildlife Service easements and things like that. So there was a meeting between the DWR, the Water Resource District Association, some agriculture groups, Senator Lewick and Representative Brandenburg, who has a similar bill that Senator Lewick wants to tie together, to see if they could come to an agreement on fixing these issues from last year and this year. That meeting happened late yesterday, and I haven't heard anything yet from the association about how it went. So as soon as I get some information, I'll pass that along. I think that there will be a hearing coming up probably before the next board meeting on Senate Bill 2276. So as soon as I get notes on that hearing and some insight on what the plan might be for that bill, I'll forward that along by email, and then I'll touch base with Larry to make sure that Wells County gets its concerns and opinions represented at that hearing.
Okay.
So I think it's headed in the right direction, but we have to see what the legislator response is.
Okay, I'm just gonna shoot Jack a quick text to see if he can respond before our meeting is over.
Okay. Do you have any questions on that, or is it kind of clear what's being proposed and what's being pushed for to change it?
Anybody have any questions for Cal? Because basically what they're doing is trying to force it. You know, Senator Lewick came up with this idea and for this bill because he went to a Minnesota meeting. Over there, they manage their water by watershed districts. But I happened to see a map of that earlier this winter. And I would say that their watershed districts are probably smaller than what our Rocky Run Joint Waterboard area is. And Lewick has this idea that he wants Red River Valley Joint Board to be like 23 counties, is it 35 counties in the Missouri River Joint Board?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's not even realistic. Not even close, especially when there's nothing in there to manage it. And I testified that in front of him last year. He didn't like that very well, but whatever, I guess. Okay, I guess,
But is the thing they're really after just money?
some of the board, I think Missouri River is, because, Red River Joint Board said that we could be a part of them and we wouldn't have to pay. Only thing, we wouldn't be able to vote, but, you know, what does that amount to? You know, I think Missouri is looking for money. That's my opinion anyway.
That's what this smells like to me, that's why I asked the question, it's just like, are you really concerned about something, or is this money?
Yeah.
You know?
I agree with Larry. I think there was a pretty transparent push on the Missouri Joint Board to get additional funding, because remember, we all got those letters, you know, saying, come join our joint board and here's your mill levy. But for Senator Lewick, I think he believes that managing water on the watershed level would solve some of the disputes going on between Sargent, Dickey, and Ransom County, and I think there's another dispute up in Northeast between Pembina and Cavalier. You know, and it maybe would, but rather than being drilled down, like Larry said, at the watershed level, you know, it's too broad. So that's the concern.
Good morning, John.
What's the general consensus across the whole board then? Or everyone else jumping on board with him, or what? What are we saying? You know?
Well, there's a lot of groups that are fighting against it, because it's unrealistic, it's unmanageable. But I don't know, Lewick has a lot of power in Bismarck. I think there's a lot of people that vote with him just because, I don't know. It's political power, isn't it, Cale?
Well, he is the chair of the Senate Ag Committee, so that is a pretty powerful position. What really actually helped as a springboard was Representative Brandenburg's bill, House Bill 1280, which says if you belong to an assessment district and you aren't paying your assessment, which is, as I understand it, what the Ramsey County landowners are doing to I think it's Drain 11 and Sargent and Dickey County, that when it comes time for a reconstruction project or a reassessment, that you can't vote. If you're not paying your assessment, then you lose your right to vote. And Senator Lewis said, I think this is a good bill, but I only think it should pass if my 2276 bill passes. And so that kind of like pushed everybody into action, because there hasn't been any resistance to Representative Brandenburg's bill. It seems like a good common sense bill. And suddenly, this bill of Senator Lewis that we're concerned about, now we can't get a good bill through unless his bill goes through. So it opened the door to say we gotta get everybody in the room and talk a little bit more directly than what has been discussed in the committee rooms about the concerns of this bill, so.
Any further questions on that? Okay. We'll move into new business then.
I thought Kale had a little bit more.
What's that?
Kale, did you have a little bit more on legislative, I thought?
It is listed on new business,
Yep.
but basically, it's been a little quieter except for this 2276 because of crossover. And most of the bills that we were concerned about have died out. So I'll try to get another email update out here tomorrow or Sunday or Monday. If you see anything in there, you have questions you want to talk about, let me know, but I'm not seeing anything else besides 2276 that's really concerning for me for Wells County right now.
Okay.
Mike, you can find a chair. I'll go around it.
Okay, I'm gonna skip the County Highway 6 thing for a minute. I'm gonna see if Brent will stop in here real quick. 2025 culvert replacement for the kind of like scheduling. Thomas, do you have the handy our schedule that we had before?
Oh, you're talking about the condition?
Yeah, the conditions of the culverts on the drains. I just happened to think of it last night. It's too late to call, so I didn't call. But we need to update our culvert replacement sheet. We've got a lot of them done already, but
We gotta drive around again and measure.
Which,
no, don't need to measure.
Do all that stuff, I ain't doing it.
which drain is it?
Any of the drains, we gotta go through that sheet again and see what's been replaced, and then we have to, because the county commissioners want another, kind of a schedule like we had last time for like a 3-year plan. But anyway.
So yes, Devin, you have to crawl through culverts again.
I'm not doing it. At least there's not snow this year, or water, right guys?
Yep.
I'll probably be able to come home this time.
I thought Tom was trying to draw them last time.
I was a kid, it wasn't a big deal, so it was dry.
Yeah, I went out with these two guys and they put me in a big snow-filled ditch and everything.
Tom thought we should just leave them out there.
It's cold out there too, I didn't have the correct clothing.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's something that we'll work on, in the next several months or whatever. Obviously, we'll have to do some inspecting this. Well, that's actually something we can get our gate man to do as well. But, okay, is everybody that's coming for this Lowen deal is here now?
I invited Lowry Township. Are you on Lowry?
Yeah. On Mike Rexon, so I see that the complaint is against me, I guess, so.
Okay. Let's see, who else would be involved in that?
Lee Garrett.
I invited him. Okay,
he said he didn't get a letter, so.
oh my gosh.
Somebody walking up.
Oh, there's somebody walking now.
Brent. Oh, it's Brent.
Oh, it's Brent. Just Brent.
Okay, well, Thomas, you wanna put up that sheet on the screen of what that watershed size is?
Okay, I'll put up, Google Earth to show.
Okay. I think they're gonna have to get you another new mic. What I asked Thomas to do after you guys were in here last time, I asked him just to give us a watershed map of the size of that. And, so it's just a real high level type thing. We'll use the stream stats, is what we use, correct, Thomas? Okay. He's got.
You're on mute, Thomas, you're on mute.
He's just trying to get the map pulled up here. And what we did is, the outlet over on John's, where that pipe is, where this actually eventually runs out at.
Yeah.
We took that elevation and made the watershed map off of that. And now you can see it on the screen here, where that little yellow pin is. That's the size of the watershed that we're working with. So there's the reason why there is so much water. You know, every time you get a big rain, you know, wherever all the low spots are, that's where all the water's going. So,
Does that show me acres?
that's 9.85 square miles, so it's over 6,000 acres. So it's fairly large. So, I guess,
Well, isn't there some of that running north?
now this would all run to that location where that yellow pin is. What? So, complaint was against, Rexon's. Is Rexon or is it Rexine?
It's Rexon.
Okay,
We don't have the E at the end of our name, I guess.
okay, okay.
Somewhere along the line.
'Cause I-
People call us both, so it doesn't matter.
You've been called worse before, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway, the complaint was, drainage. And this complaint started back in 1982, correct? That you filed one back then?
Yeah.
With Stutsman County Waterboard. We received some of that information a while back as well. And, so, I don't know that, you know, obviously, we don't know what's been drained, what's not been drained, over the, you know, the last 40-some years. All's, you know, one of the facts is that we've had a lot of precip in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
An extreme amount of precip at times. I don't know what you guys got down there, you get 20, 25 inches last summer again?
Over 24.
Yeah. So, you know, it was brought up last time that maybe, you know, we investigate this as, you know, possibly setting up a drain, you know, having it permitted so that it could be, you get the water out of there. Cause it runs to the northeast, back into Wells County and then goes into the Pipestem Creek, correct?
Yeah.
Through that culvert, like you say, it's not a natural drain.
Right. So Kale, can you, this culvert's been in there for like 50-some years?
Yeah, like 75.
Yeah,
How big of a culvert is it, John?
Well, it's two 24-inch culverts. but
Oh,
they're-
okay, so it's not a 12-inch culvert.
No, but they're old. And if you wanna crawl through to see how much has collapsed, I'll
Oh,
let you.
okay. Okay.
Devin?
Yeah.
it pays tries not to be the smallest guy, Chad.
I'll do the little one, one like 1,200 feet.
You go through the, I couldn't get through a 36.
Oh. So, I guess, where would you guys like to go with this? You wanna try and establish something that's permanent?
Well, I think we need something permanent, that's up to John, it's his land.
How much money you have?
Well, I guess,
But what I'm at, they put a culvert in, so it drains across my field, and then it zigzags around, it just ruined that whole field. I would like it to go down that ditch and then go in where the natural drain is,
mm-hmm. Now you're talking right on the county line,
on
correct?
the county line.
Yeah, okay.
I showed John that the other day where, I don't know how much cut it would be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'd take a lot.
Okay, so the consensus is that everybody would like to have a permanent solution to this, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. And there's two options for you guys. You can do it as a private drain, and foot the bill, you know. Normally in an assessed drain, what would happen is you see that map there? All those acres would be assessed a cost if this was a legal assessed drain, like we have other in the other, you know, a lot of them in our county. Or you could do it private, but I think everybody that encompasses in that area should help pay for the, you know, whatever it takes to do
Yeah.
this. Correct? Not just one person?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm gonna have Kale explain the two different options and what it takes for each one. And we'll go through that, cause if we set it up as an assessed drain, then you can get, state cost share funding, as of right now is 45% on the project. But then there's some additional costs that go along with that, which would offset some of it, but Kale, go ahead.
Sure, there's pros and cons of each. I'm gonna start with the assessment drain, which is using the power of the government to create and take right-of-way to build a project. And the power of the government is both in terms of acquiring the right-of-way and managing it into the future, and then also assessing the lands that are benefited. So that process starts with either a petition by the landowners to the water board, or by the water board initiating the project on its own. But in order to do so, the landowners who would be benefited and lead the project need to deposit a bond or some seed money to get the project going. That seed money is used to pay for an engineer, likely Apex Engineering, to design the project at a high level. They might look a little bit at things like permitting, but basically to look at a high level of what would be the design of the project that would fix the water management issues in this watershed. When they do that, they would have meetings with landowners, informational meetings, gather public input, have the plans reviewed also by the board. Eventually, when that report is complete, they would file it with the board along with a proposed assessment list of the estimate that everybody would have to pay if the project was approved. And then the board approves those preliminary documents and sets a public hearing date. Then we send out notices and a voting ballot to all the landowners in the watershed that are proposed to be assessed for the project, and everybody gets one vote per dollar proposed to be assessed. So those landowners that benefit the most would likely pay the most. They would also then get the most votes. There's a public hearing, and then there's a deadline for filing those votes. Then the board meets and counts those ballots, and 50% of the votes filed have to be in favor of the drain in order to proceed. If they are, then the board issues an order approving the project, and then notices and holds a second hearing where people can come and request adjustments to their proposed assessment. But at the end of that second hearing, all of the assessments together have to equal whatever amount it requires to pay for the project. And as Larry said, right now there's 45% cost share available for projects like this, so we'd apply for that. And if that's given, then that would reduce the cost of the project. There's talk about that cost share percentage going up. There's a push right now to increase it. Once that process is done, then the board bids out the project and constructs it. The board applies for and gets bond financing. And then letters would go out once construction is substantially complete, offering for those who want to prepay their cost to avoid interest to do so. Those who don't prepay, then the cost of the project appears on your tax statement spread out for a period of, typically around 5 to 10 to 15 years, depending on the cost of the project. That's option one. It has got some pros in that you can apply for cost share funding. It's got some pros in that, if one landowner just doesn't want to cooperate at all, but the majority of everybody else does, you can keep the project moving forward. It's got some cons, one of them being because you're using the power of the government, we have to follow a lot more steps, we have to follow a lot more procedures, due diligence, permitting. That has a cost to it. And if you want to know what that cost is, I would say on average, although a lot depends on how complicated the permitting gets or the easement acquisition, but you should expect it at least adds about 30% to the cost of the project. That's just to comply with all of the laws and statutes that govern that process because it's the government acting. As Larry said, the other opportunity is to work together and construct a private drain. You might still need to hire an engineer or an attorney to help you with permitting, but there's a lot less steps and procedures that have to be gone through. So one of the pros of working on this privately is cost. You can greatly save on cost. One of the cons is if your project requires, crossing, let's say, 4 landowners' properties, and one of those landowners refuses to cooperate either in letting you onto their property to construct the project or paying their fair share, you don't have the authority to force them into this project. So, you can save a bunch of money, but it requires 100% cooperation and agreement. So that, that can be tricky, but it can be doable if everybody agrees that this is necessary and needs to be done to protect this land going forward. Questions on that?
Okay, I do have one question, Cal. Since we're dealing with Wells County, Assessment County, if we do this on an assessment, then we are more than likely gonna have to set up a joint board between Stutzman and Wells, correct?
Yeah, we would go to Stutzman County and form, through a joint powers agreement, a joint board that would be responsible for managing just this project.
Okay. You've had some conversations with their attorney down there. What is their feelings? What do they like to see done with this?
Well, when they got this complaint from Mr. Lowen before we did, and when they got it, they asked if we would want to meet as a group and look at this issue, but the offer was to meet and cooperatively investigate the non-complying drain complaint. But at that time, nothing had been filed with our board. But they did have a very cooperative approach, saying, let's meet down and investigate this together. I imagine they would have the same approach if the landowner said, rather than, spend a bunch of money investigating the complaint and then, appeals and whatever comes with that, which we're obligated to do if we can't get this resolved. I think the Stutzman County Board would be just as cooperative to sit down and look at forming a joint board if the landowners wanted to, in order to put a permanent solution in here.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Well, I talked to the county road department, and they've talked about, they'd be willing to dig that out, but it's gonna cost.
Mm-hmm.
Put bigger culverts in there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about as far as because the main guy was in heaven operation when got back to me at all.
Okay. Okay.
Dutton County Water Board would agree to get a temporary ditch put in. And then he said usually you get that in, then later on you put in permanent ditch and they usually grant it.
Okay. Any other questions? Michael?
Well, I'm all for, working on getting the water moved out, and, cause our farm is under that giant lake, and, you know, we've lost a lot of our farmyard, and it's, you know, and the lakes that are on the other side of the, you know, are double to triple the size and all formed together, and everything is flowing over, or so I'm all for trying to figure out a way to move it, you know, and so it can benefit everybody and move out. So I don't like coming to these meetings with a sheet that says, you know, there's a complaint against me and my family, hey, when we haven't done any draining, being on this land, and, that's in, like, this Willis Seibold land in 35 and 36. We've never had a scraper in that land. We don't clean the drains out. We don't do any draining of any kind. Does water go out of it? Yes. But
Well, yeah,
we
there's,
don't do any draining there and haven't.
yeah,
Well, that's not what the complaint is about, it's about all the old ditches that are there, putting just too much water right down there, and it comes across and floods out everybody.
How come it always is just up against me and my dad? That, you know, if that's what the complaint is, that's 47 years ago when I was 2 years old.
okay, I'm gonna ask you guys this question. Are you using this complaint as a tool to get something started and get some kind of
Well, that's,
permanent
we wanna
solution?
just start getting a conversation started here.
Okay.
Because a lot of that water comes across, it goes across somebody else, and it ends up flooding you back out again too. You know, and it's,
Yeah, it's flooding us out tremendously.
Okay,
you
Okay.
can't really see where the water comes from unless it's actually running. Then you can see. But it's to everybody's benefit to get this through, you know,
okay, so I'm gonna ask you this
get
question.
it moved.
We're all sitting at the table here in the room, we're talking about a solution. Are you guys willing to drop that complaint against him? And we just start this process of working together and getting a solution for this,
Yes, I guess so, yeah.
okay?
Yeah, I'd like to get one down that road ditch that doesn't go across my field, and it goes down the natural drain. I'd have to add grass seeded in.
Okay.
I got just tremendous ditches washed through my field.
Yeah. Yeah, I've rode around with John a lot and down in that area, and as we all know, water runs downhill, and down there it runs downhill very rapidly. And it can make ditches, very big ditches, in a big hurry. Okay, so I guess what I'm gonna ask you guys to do is, will you formally, take back your complaint?
I would, if we can do
Or withdraw it, I
something.
should say. But, you know, saying that, you know, withdraw the complaint against Michael, but we're gonna continue to work on, move forward with this to get some kind of a solution.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, we will have you sign something to state that effect soon, but we will continue on with this. I guess the next question is gonna be, what do you guys wanna do? Do you wanna try doing it as a private deal? Do you think you can get 100% everybody on board, or do you wanna do this as an assessment type project? Cause this, another benefit that Cale didn't talk about with the assessment project, okay, if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, everybody helps pay for that. In a private deal, unless you have a good contract wrote up, you know, who's gonna share in those costs? You know, that's always gonna be a problem. Where if it's a legal assessment, we take care of all the work with that.
I'm not, you know, to me, this is mini Devil's Lake. You there's no outlet.
Yep.
I just calculated, I don't know if I'm calculating right, but a 4-inch rain would be 1,980 acre feet. And I have pumps that go, supposed to go 2,000 a minute, I don't think they do, but that's 224 days. So just a 4-inch.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, unless I'm calculating it wrong, I don't know.
This is just basically like Hertzfield, the Hertzfield project was. The only thing is here is we're not dealing with a lake and we're not dealing with sulfate levels. So that makes things a lot easier.
Okay, if this is all wildlife, or there's a lot of wildlife, if you guys, I think it'd be more benefit instead of private, the government would, or the assessed drain, so that, would the private guys have to deal with wildlife?
Yeah, cause the permitting process, it was the same thing over in Hertzfield. We had to work with the US Fish and Wildlife and Game and Fish. Okay, what level can we take this water down to and permit it to that point? I'm correct in saying that, Cale, right? That process would be the same, private or assessed?
Right. The Fish and Wildlife Service easements, the government, being the water board, has to follow those laws just like private landowners do. When it comes to NRCS wetland conservation compliance, the water board can drain those wetlands, but landowners cannot then farm those converted wetlands. So we'd have to look closely at your NRCS maps and figure out, if there's wetlands being cropped that are in the path of the alignment, maybe mitigating those or avoiding those, but, we have to work through that just like private landowners do. I look at a project like this, and this is really more of an engineering question, so I apologize for an attorney stepping into the engineering role, but my hunch is when the engineers start investigating this, an assessment drain project in this watershed would be more about containing the water in the flood years than it would be about, gaining new farm ground. It would be about preventing the infrastructure and the farmland from flooding in the wet years than it would be about, suddenly farming a bunch of these deep pocket wetlands that probably haven't been farmed in decades.
This all runs.
And then just to add too, once you submit a surface drain permit application, it gets kicked to the North Dakota Department of Water Resources, and then they decide if it's a statewide or interdistrict significant project. And then if they do deem it is, then they'll send out solicitation review letters to all the appropriate agencies. And then they'll have time to comment.
And that doesn't matter if it's private or an legal assessed, correct, Thomas?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, it's part of the surface drain permit process.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
And this isn't a project that gets done this summer.
Oh, no.
So they know that.
See, all the miners in wildlife,
All of yours is?
yes.
So that big slough, that when you come around the correction, that's all wildlife? To this, it would be the south of, I'm guessing that's your guys' farm?
My
Section
farm.
3.
Yeah, and then it takes out that gravel road there, cause that's blocked off, correct? Yeah,
Yeah, that's underwater, that's been
that's all wildlife,
abandoned technically.
Do they have just one
No,
easement?
it's just wildlife easements.
just wildlife easements, okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's only certain areas too.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's way bigger.
It's way bigger than what they got.
right.
I had them out last spring to look at it.
I'm assuming yours is way bigger than what they had signed up to.
Oh, yeah.
So
You
then
wanted
they shouldn't
to-
have any problem with grading that down.
You know, put it back into that because it's so big. They could buy it back or pay them, how they said that.
Yeah, they would
Per
just
acre,
increase the
like if
easement.
you're
to
buying
cover
land,
the
but I don't want them.
So basically what would happen is the drain would be designed down to an elevation of where those easements would be. and you couldn't take any more water out of there than what the
Yeah.
easement is, you know.
I think it's probably down to the culvert level
Hey,
that's in that road.
You don't know that until you get to the engineering portion of it, you know.
Well, my only other, I've asked these guys too, if that culvert fails, where's the next level that it can possibly drain out? Nobody really, I think it has to go to Beeson, but I have no idea.
That's a question that Thomas could answer, you know, without too much trouble. Did you hear the question, Thomas?
I did not.
Okay, if this culvert fails in that location, going through that hill, where's the next lowest point, or the next higher point that the water would go out at?
I did a small amount of research. I don't know if it'd be around this location or if there's a location to the south here. It's close to here
Okay,
is where it would come out. And I don't know that elevation, but I could find that
okay,
somehow
okay.
if I just did a little bit of more research.
Close to Fort Squat there, it's going right across the federal game.
Yeah, you know, actually, I think Thomas and I talked about that one day. Didn't we, Thomas, talk about going on to some, game refuge stuff?
As in, I guess I didn't hear the question or the comment.
The question was, the next lowest point, Dennis just said, would be going through the game refuge stuff.
Is that to the south here?
Yeah,
When I looked at some quad maps and other items with contours, I didn't look at LiDAR, but it looked like it was in this section 11.
okay, okay. Okay,
But that's just a quick view. I didn't look too deep into it. I didn't get very accurate contours. That was just a quick assumption.
okay. Okay, well, what would be our next step as far as doing this? Cause obviously, if, you know, if they wanna move forward with this, are you guys leaning more towards private or legal?
Well, my opinion is if you have to mess with wildlife, I'm not doing it.
Don't blame ya. Is that kind of a consensus?
Probably because I don't know how, you know, we would be, or how to do it, how we could get through it without help from.
Yeah, it's complicated because of the wildlife.
That would be a concern.
I would think you'd be able to get it down to the culvert level that's there. Now it's way
Right
above
there.
going over the road.
Yeah.
But you gotta realize too, that's a lot, I understand you wanna move this water down the road, move it, but y'all gotta come together and have a solution first of all, or work together. And how many other guys are involved in this 6,000 acres? With that, cause that's correct, it's like 6,000 acres
Yeah.
this would be?
Yeah, roughly. Lee Garrett is in there. Who else is in there?
Sukkot, I think, according to this map, there'd be a Sukkot, and there's Schultz's, maybe get into it a little bit, Mitch Schultz.
Okay.
According to the map.
What, obviously, where Dennis is at and where you're at, Michael, encompasses probably, would say the most benefit is how that typically works. So obviously, you know, I don't know where to go with
I
that.
don't know if these guys have any answers but I do have one question about the map or
Okay.
the drainage area. If you go to, can they change it to 35 and 36 so we can see the northern part of it?
Okay, slide the map down so we can see the northern part, please. Okay,
So in 35, there's that bigger basin there that
yep,
when the wet years, that connects all the way, all those lakes just combine.
Yep.
And then that water that's just a little bit, goes into 36 onto the east there.
yep,
the water that's in there, it actually, it exits out through 25 and heads to the north,
Oh, really?
and it eventually goes into, that what it's, yeah.
Is that when it gets to a certain elevation, it goes that way?
Well, that's a lot higher though, that's a lot higher ground, this is.
Yep.
Yeah, and that little neck of land there is down to about 50, maybe, it's about 50 feet wide on the wet years, and the water keeps eating it away. And I don't know what's gonna happen once that water touches each other, or if it does, is that water gonna just come down
From
to
the
the
north?
south, or is it gonna, you know, or is there a way to go that other way with any of this, or, you know, or maybe it doesn't matter in the scope of things, but that's the one with the map, when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, that water for, it connects with all those lakes and heads out through section 25, that,
And does it go off to the northeast on 25 there?
yes, goes to the.
25,
yeah,
19.
Yeah,
Okay.
So you're saying this northwest quarter heads north
yes, yeah,
of 36?
yes,
But only after it gets so high, correct?
probably, yes, that's correct,
Okay.
yeah, otherwise it's just another basin, you know, or.
Probably that little spot right there.
That's where it, does it go from in
Yeah.
36 and then
Yep,
goes north?
yes, Yep, right there,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Okay. But obviously, if this was in a drain that was designed to go south, that would never happen then.
I don't know how high a spot that is right there. Compared to the rest of them. That's pretty high, not pretty high ground.
Is there a lot of cattails in that area?
Yes,
There is.
like the ground between that little piece
If
of
you want,
land, that's.
just go up to the screen and just point at it. Just watch the cord.
So, let's see here. Yeah, this little neck here, this little spot is about 50 feet wide now. And anything on this side, comes through. Goes right, it all connects and then starts flowing through up that direction.
Okay.
That's, and this water, it's so huge, it just keeps eating away round it, so that's never gonna come back again. And I don't know, are we, the way this is shaped, and that's an engineering question, maybe I have, is really, is all this here, since this, to me, it's pretty level actually, right at 50 feet, I mean, it's just so close there. Or all this water, or will only go down here, or can some of this water go the other direction, you know, which then would affect other people, but.
I would say that if the water only runs to the northeast, when you get to a high water level year, that won't go
It's
back
not.
north. You know, cause obviously what the engineering would do is they would go back and look at maps prior years to establish a level of that water. And obviously they gotta look at, you know, the wildlife easements as well. That's correct, Thomas, right? You guys would do that?
We would look at, so we would try to get more accurate information than this. This is just a quick, try to get a watershed boundary, type of boundary we have right now. If we would work through the assessment process, we would actually get LiDAR data and contours and cut the watershed with that and get a more accurate boundary. So this may or may not be included in that assessment.
It's just a high level map for conversation purposes, what it's for.
Yep.
Okay. So, where do we go from here?
Is there any kind of, ability to foresee with looking at this of little projects or part projects to begin with versus it all combined together immediately. You know, like, I know, like Lowen's, I think, biggest concern is the water from that culvert, or to they, you know.
Well, and we have the same problem that you do with it washing away the banks of that big water that's right there too. It's
In three.
eating away,
Yeah.
yep, it's eating away at the banks right behind the trees to the north where the power lines are. There's 4 poles that are leaning over now. Basically everything, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, when we first started this, and I understand the assessment stuff, I just gotta wrap my head around this. You guys came in, and what you guys wanna do is, instead of the water coming down and looping around and going through your stuff, you guys are asking, can you just make a ditch to run it along the road and then let it drop in? Okay.
But there'd also have to be some way to control that too, because otherwise you're just gonna take out all the roads down below going past the church. And even one past that too.
Question
Yeah,
for you.
keep running and just keep cutting it deeper.
Yeah.
There's gotta be some way to control it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of temporary permits, for parts of this, if we're gonna move forward with this, Kale or Thomas, do you guys know?
Yeah, so any surface ditching that has a watershed greater than 80 acres needs a permit. And you can, if it's an emergency, there is a procedure for an emergency temporary permit. I've been through the process of getting them, I've been through the process of fighting them. Emergency is a little bit of a misnomer, it's not quick. It still takes months to get an emergency permit. So I do have a suggestion. I think whether the group goes forward privately or with an assessment drain, you really need to sit down with an engineer who can help you explore these options and figure out the best route. And Thomas and his colleague Jennifer Malloy, they also know the permitting well too. So without an attorney, they can help you kind of look at a high level at what solutions might work and what hurdles you might encounter for those. I think if a few of the leaders from this landowner group get together and meet with them and work on these proposals, you can use that effort and maybe a little bit of seed money to Apex Engineering from each of you to find a solution that's gonna work. And then if you decide that this solution really would operate best as an assessment drain, keep a good accounting of what you've paid Apex and what's gone into their design and study. If that information and data is useful to an assessment drain project and it passes the landowner vote, then it can become part of the project costs. But I think it would be best served by sitting down with, an engineer and maybe Apex Engineering to look at this and come up with what the best design might be.
There's also some cost sharing on the engineering portion of this as well, correct?
So there is, but Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe it kicks in until after a certain period. So this is why the engineering is done at a very high level upfront to try to push back the final plans and specifications and intents engineering at the end, because the cost share doesn't kick in right away at the beginning.
Okay.
It kicks in more during the design phase, which would be after the assessment district vote.
Okay. Is that something you want to do, is just sit down with an engineer?
What are your approximate costs to have an engineer look at?
Oh, are you good with that portion, or is that a Jennifer question, Thomas?
Like a half hour?
Yeah, right.
I didn't get a question.
The question is just a rough estimate on cost, just to sit down and have a high level discussion and look at some of this stuff.
I'd have to touch, I don't know the exact cost, it wouldn't be a tremendous amount, but it might be a fair amount. I'd probably touch base with Jennifer on that.
Yeah.
Just, I'm not experienced with starting out a project like this.
Yep.
But I don't see it being a tremendous amount.
John Deere salesman says all the time, it's not a tremendous amount.
Yeah, I guess I could visit with, or why don't you visit with Jennifer just to, and just ask her, and then we can get together. I guess if you guys wanna do this on your own, or we can help you, or whatever.
Well, we could just sit down and have a quick conversation, have a meeting also, and then see what you're thinking, and then come up with the cost at that point too. That's okay too.
Okay.
Is that slough in section 11, is that kind of where the water mainly ends up before it drains through your culverts, John? In section 11
3.
there?
Well, yeah, well,
2
3,
and 11.
11, yeah.
Okay, is that US Fish and Wildlife?
I don't believe so, the cycle land, but
Okay.
Stolz, I mean, 40 years ago, they used to pump that. That was dry.
Good. I just question that because what US Fish and Wildlife bought in 1950, we've run into enough issues where that slough, I'll just say it was 5 acres in 1950, and now it's 100 acres, and they claim that whole slough is theirs, and it's not. And that's where you could get into some elevation things that food for thought.
Right, I'm not sure, I don't think, I couldn't tell you if Cyber has it, I know none of mine is. I get mailings every year, but they just wanna plug the culvert, so.
I don't think Stoltz's is in there, but I'm not positive.
He was smart enough not to sign it up.
Well, you end up fighting them is what you do. They can't take any more than what they got easements on, but.
And they only show maps of the dry years.
Yeah.
The guy that was out last year said that they only have control over that stuff that's outlined in their map.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted us to expand that, because it's gotten so much bigger. No point in doing that, we're already in a pickle because.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
To avoid getting stuck where it's been, and for years, or as we do with talking about it, and then it's difficult to figure out, well, everyone wants to do something, we don't know what to do. So we're kinda saying, hey, just to retract here a little bit, is that it's gonna take us to talk to engineers, right? And it's probably gonna be either mostly privately between us to figure out who's gonna pay for that. It's not gonna be a Waterboard paying for the engineers to tell us, yes, it can be drained through John's,
No, that would be up
whatever.
to you guys.
It's up to us to talk to them, and so we could ask an engineering firm, we wanna visit about this, but we could get some of these maps from you that you've already developed, like the watershed area, and
Yeah.
refer them
Yeah.
to you to say, we would like you to look at.
Yeah, Tammy, I think, is that in your packet of stuff that she gave you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who did the
okay.
engineering on this, or who did the?
Apex.
Apex did,
Oh, that's Apex.
yeah, I just asked Thomas to do a high level, just so we could, it's easier to look at something like this and see than to just sit here and talk about it and not really know for sure. And that's why I asked him to do that, and this is something that's, relatively simple to do. But, I'll tell you what, Thomas, you visit with Jennifer a little bit, and I'll be in touch with you guys, and then I'll kind of be the go-between for you guys, if that works for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and if nothing else, we can, get together and have a Zoom meeting with them, or whatever, and just discuss it a little more in depth, so. Okay, we will have you guys have a, put in writing that you're withdrawing the complaint.
I have it.
Okay, before you guys leave, if you wanna sign that, I appreciate you guys doing that, and then we will work forward with the rest of this. I'll be in touch with you.
Do you recommend us talking to Apex Engineering thing then, or is there I always interstate engineering,
Trust me, Apex is gonna be your best and your cheapest options when it comes to engineers.
And that's just.
Cause they have done an enormous amount of drainage work like this. And, we started with Apex, I don't know how long ago, 6 years, 5, 6 years ago, we started with them. We were with a different company.
Gentleman that's on one.
Yeah, one thing nice about Apex as well, they tell you, okay, this is what they're gonna charge you to do this. If they go over, still pay what they told you you're gonna pay. So.
We just put them on the spot, Larry.
Get overcharged, Thomas. They've been extremely good to us. And that's why we like working with them.
They are good to work with.
Yeah, we don't get unexpected bills and garbage all the time and yeah.
And if we get an agreement of, we wanna move forward with something, when there are some county roads and,
Yeah.
well, Stutzman County, Dave had, I would assume, I don't know, I guess, when we have to start contacting them, or just come back to the Waterboard if we have an idea, is that kind of a.
But if you go private,
Yeah.
you guys are responsible, you and your engineer would be responsible for that. If, what's that? And if you do it as an assessed drain, then we work with the engineer and that's all done. Yeah.
Now, not to push this, if you do an assess, okay, and that water gets pushed to the next level, is there problems with that?
They would take a look at that, the downstream effect, cause isn't that a tributary that goes directly to the Pipestem Creek right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I don't.
Yeah, the engineers would have to establish for the permitting, whether it's private or an assessment drain, that there's not an unreasonable amount of downstream impact. That'd be part of the permitting process with the state.
So if the downstream is right here on the water, they don't want any more. That's
Usually the way it works.
And then with the cess drains, more than likely there would be an operations plan, and then it would be controlled by the Waterboard. There'd be gates and stuff down there. Is typically the way they all work. So. Anyway. Okay, thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Now, we're
When I get a ditch from where that culvert is, go down to the natural drain.
can you get one?
Yeah.
We'll investigate that when we get
Okay.
started with it. So.
Otherwise, it screws the whole field up.
Yeah. I think that the simplest thing would be is if they come out and did a site visit probably as well.
A what?
A site visit where the engineer would just
Yeah.
come out and look, at the site and stuff. So, okay, thank you guys.
You want one next meeting?
We'll see. Okay, thanks for stopping over, Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about with these guys, County Highway 6 out here
Okay.
by, Lils. Let's see, what was the legal description of section 28 and 33, but I forgot what, so 149,
Oh, what township?
68?
Just sign that.
I signed it.
Oh, it's Bremen, right? Yeah. Yes, 14968.
Okay.
Section 2833. Kind of zoom in on that.
Okay.
Okay, Brent, you wanna walk up to that screen and show us where the issue is? Just watch the cord.
Yep.
It'd be over to the left-hand side of the,
Where's Dave Will's farm?
just off to the, top left corner.
Top left corner?
Yep.
Well, why am I just not? I'm
Your,
on,
your other left, Brent.
yeah, well,
No,
up
oh,
here?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
that's the old church.
that's the old church, so Lil's is right here.
Yep.
Okay, so the complaint is, or not complaint, but Dave is concerned with this ditch, this piece right here holding water, he claims this is high here. This is, all this dirt work was done 2016, 2000, when we did the highway, when we redid the highway. So he's always claimed that this was not at the right elevation. This will not get to the highway right here. So here's your highway, and then your highway going east. When Brian went, he actually did a little scraper work in the ditch here, and we were gonna have him lower this a little bit for this pipe. This is where Brian said there's about 18 inches of fill that needs to be taken out. And he says, even if that's taken out, this is where the original complaint was, or concern, all that water's gotta run along this ditch down into the low area on the, which is 3/4 of a mile down. So where we run into the problems is this is a county this is a county federal aid gravel road. The ditch is actually in the county right of way, but the spoilage is gonna have to go to the landowner to clean this out. By doing what Dave wants here is not gonna solve the problem, basically.
Yep.
This has gotta all be done, all the way down. And, well, you know who the landowner is.
Richard Lees.
Okay?
Who's the landowner on the north side of the highway?
On this side,
Up north, up. Okay.
Here?
Yeah.
is it Hagen? I gotta look in the plat book, I'm not sure.
Oh, I guess, yeah, I got it right here in front of me.
Yep,
Section 33. That's Richard Lees, so Liddell Hagen, oh
Yep.
boy. Okay.
yep. So, those are the two landowners. So this has been, to make a long story even longer, this whole problem started when we redid the highway. Okay? There was complaints that they felt, we did ditch work because the highway was built up. Some new pipes were put in, and the landowners were upset, they didn't think it was at the right level. Okay? So the contractor that was hired under the bid was out there, they met, and he says, hey, we're coming back to get our equipment. When we come back, we'll touch this up. Okay? They came back, got their equipment, didn't touch it up. The county had still owed the contractor amount of money. Landowner said, well, don't pay them until they come back and do what they said they were gonna do. And at that time, the commission paid the contractor the remaining amount, and it's been a battle for 9 years. And there's a whole new set of commissioners, and it's just been, that 3/4 of a mile is, they want that drain. And like Brian had stated, he can go in there and get that to level, but it still ain't gonna go anywhere, because the 3/4 of a mile of ditch that runs along Lisa's down to the drain down there needs to be cleaned out. So obviously you guys understand the situation with, the county. If the county would go clean that ditch, you have two options. It's gotta go onto Richard Leese's land, the spoil, or it's gotta be trucked away.
Yep.
So that's kinda where it stands.
Okay. Is there any legal, cause I suppose once you just have the easement you're dealing with for the road and that's it. It's not like a drainage easement where you got X amount of feet beyond, the ditch. Cale, do you wanna kinda explain how that works?
Well, the road authority, this all sounds to me like primary road authority, not water board jurisdiction, but
Right.
you've got a right of way there. You said it's a federal state aid highway. I don't know what your width of your right of way is, but anything that the road authority would do outside of that, they're gonna need landowner permission.
Right. So along the highway, it's 75 feet from the center line, and then the gravel road is just like your township, 66 feet, 33 feet each way. You got a total of 56 feet. So actually, as Brian said, the ditch is barely in the county right of way. Which would basically be just like your typical township right of way, cause it's a gravel road that's 3/4 of a mile.
Okay, but a federal aid road is different than a township road, isn't it?
Well, it used to be a township road, and it came back, so that's a question I can't answer, because I assume it's 66 feet, because that's what it was when it was a township road. I don't
Okay.
know if it was ever expanded when it became a county road.
Okay.
Because 20 years ago, this was the township's issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even answer how we wound up with 66 miles of gravel roads that the county is now in charge of, but this happened before my time. I think it happened during Mel's time. And I don't even know why certain roads were given, cause what we get a question is why townships will come to us and say, why don't we have any federal gravel roads in our township? Why are they all over in this area? And I don't have an answer for it, and I don't know that the commissioners do either.
Probably not, yeah.
But, so I guess my assumption is the mother of all mess ups. I'm assuming that it's 66 feet, because when it was township 20 years ago, it was 66 feet.
And Richard Lease has been asked if this.
Well, he hasn't been approached because
Yeah,
of extenuating litigation and circumstances. I
Right.
don't mean to laugh, but
yeah,
it's kind of been it hasn't been a good deal. So we
Yeah.
just kind of, well, let's see how everything goes, but, we're in a situation where Dave won't back off. And not to complain about Dave, but he's not gonna back off till something's done.
yeah,
And we were prepared to clean that quarter mile. We had Brian out there last fall. And then when he started doing some set up the transit, and started doing everything, he goes, wait a minute, this isn't 6 inches, this is 18 inches or more. And once it gets to the culvert that goes underneath the highway that runs east, it ain't going anywhere. Because the 3/4 of a mile that it's gotta go through is higher. So at that point, we asked Brian, okay, this is bigger than just a couple-hour job to please the landowner, stop.
yeah,
And then Brian kind of explained all this when you guys were in here at the last commission meeting.
yeah.
So then, it got into the minutes, and it basically, for the most part, the reason Boone brought it up is to get it so the landowner would see that it has been at least talked about in a
Yeah.
county commission meeting. And then at that point, we stopped, and we didn't know what to do.
Your first step would be to find out how wide that easement is,
Yep.
and,
And then approach the landowner and say, we're gonna clean this, we wanna clean this out, it's gonna go onto your property.
That goes right down to that, whichever Lisa's house is.
Yep, correct.
Eric's.
Really, and when it crosses that highway, I thought it dropped pretty good.
It's, the closer you get to his farm,
Yep.
is the more of the drop.
Yeah,
Okay.
To be quite honest with you, when I say 3/4 of a mile,
probably less than that.
probably less than that, but definitely a good 3/8 to a half a mile right off the highway. There's gonna be a lot of work to get that drain. And once it gets closer, then there's no stopping it. You guys all know that that's a pretty low area
Yeah.
down there, but it's getting it halfway there.
Yeah, I think the first thing you should probably do is get Brian back out there with his laser
Yep,
and see how far you actually have to go.
and then approach leases.
Yeah, so you know you're
You guys
dealing
get any
with.
other answers than that?
I'm glad it's you and not me.
I know you are. Yeah, and I mean, and so I'll bring this up, to the commissioners in the April meeting. I have no issue approaching them and asking them. All they can say is no, and then we have to go into a further battle with it.
Yep.
But, I think the commissioners, and I can't speak for them, but obviously I think they want this problem to go away because it's been lingering on for 8-9 years.
Yeah,
If you do it, and there is a yes or whatever, right?
Right, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, I guess that's as far as we got in the meeting. Now, we haven't spoke about it, it was kinda tabled or dropped, it was least discussed. So I'll put it on my agenda to meet, when we meet with the commissioners in April, and say, I was at the Waterboard meeting, here's what their suggestion was, do we wanna go ahead with it? And at that point, it'll probably be me and a commissioner that will approach the leases it probably won't just be me and.
That's a good idea.
You got that other, what's her name too, right?
Liddell Hagen.
Liddell Hagen,
Liddell.
yeah, you know, and that basically, all that work is almost completely in the county right away. It is in the right of way, because we're talking about 12 more feet too.
Yeah.
You know, we're actually talking about a lot more feet, 150-foot right of way compared to 66.
Yeah.
That
And
other side of that gravel road, that Little's too, it's Lisa's and then who's on the other side?
Helensky, isn't it?
I do believe it's
That's
Walensky.
Walensky, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, cause that's DJ's old farm there.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, it would be Helensky land. So it's Hagen, Helensky, and Lease. Well, and then Little, of course, you know, if you look at the four corners.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
so that's where that stands, and I'm glad you guys brought it up. We didn't think it was a water board issue, but I guess
Yep.
mainly they were probably reaching out to you just for a little bit of,
Ideas.
information and ideas.
So when you dig it all out and when it's cleaned out, where does it go? I mean, it isn't.
Well, there's a huge draw that runs through there, so then it would go to
Ends
the,
up in the James River.
it winds up in the
No.
James, no, it,
Um,
does it wind, it winds up over in Rockford.
it ends up going into the north branch of the Oak Creek drain, I believe.
Correct, yes, I do believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not talking a lot of water here.
No,
You know, when you look at what's on Hagen's land, obviously, as you stated with the previous people, we've been wet for 25 years, 30 years or more. So it can't go anywhere. We're probably only talking about 15, 20 acres that is really balled up there. Most of that field was seeded. When you look at this, Court, so Lil's here. This is basically the only thing he's concerned about, and this picture really doesn't do justice because probably this part here was all seeded. It's just that there's some cattails because it can't finish draining out. We're not talking, you know, an entire quarter of land here. We're talking about 20 acres.
That's the Liddell Hagen's.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And why the hell is, what's his face complaining, was Liddell complaining to you about it?
No.
The landowner, is he the one complaining to you about it?
Liddell has not said boo.
But see, it's a little farther north. Well, no, it's,
Why is the landowner coming to?
And this goes back to when the highway was done. There were some extremely hard feelings with Dave Lill on this entire project back in 16, and I think that's why he's pushing it. I'm not trying to throw Dave under the bus, but,
Facts are facts.
yeah,
He
he's
doesn't
pretty
own-
hard to satisfy. There's a lot of hard feelings there that go back from 9 years, and it's something that really, for 9 years, has kind of been a moot point, but it just won't never get dropped. And now his two boys have got involved with it also.
It's not their land.
Right,
It's not their land.
but they're complaining that the problem is in the county right away.
Oh, yeah.
So even though it's not their land, their complaint is that, you know, their original, it's a quarter mile, you know, 300 yards. And they want that clean, and we would've done it, but it wasn't gonna do any good. Like Brian said, we can clean it, its water's still gonna sit there, cause it's not gonna go underneath the highway, and it's not gonna get to its original designation. So,
Yep.
you know, with Brian, you guys have worked with Brian, when Brian does something, he wants to do it right. So that's why we stopped him, because he says, yeah, I can do it, but it ain't gonna benefit anybody.
okay, well,
All
that's
right.
your suggestions and, good luck.
So, yeah, I'm gonna need it. Thank you, guys.
Do not go alone.
Oh, no, trust me, I've already had a complaint filed against me with that group already.
Oh, what's one more?
Huh? What's one more? Well, I'm holding the record now. It's 18 months without a complaint from there for me, so I'm trying to get to 2 years.
I'll sign one today. Good luck.
We'll send you the bill. Any more legislative updates, Kale?
Jack has joined us, so.
Okay.
Maybe he's got an update for us.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Willis County Water Resource District. Thanks for having us this morning. I'm still here with Danny. And can you guys give us just a brief record, Danny?
Maybe she's not on the screen here.
Am I on the screen?
Yeah. Other than we can't see you, but
Okay, well.
you're listed there anyway.
Okay, well, let me see you here, bud, Danny, or, okay.
Oh, they disconnected.
Oh, okay.
I'll text Jack.
Okay. Well, we're waiting for them. Let's just quick go. We got their joint board meeting this afternoon. Foster County approved just like their share $7,000 cap on, you know, a emergency contingency plan. And, you know, we approved the 12.5, but I guess we didn't designate whether that was ours. I'm thinking that we approved that as a whole joint board. So, Kale, do you wanna just give us a brief summary of what they did?
Yeah, I can do that, but Jack has reconnected here if we wanna.
Oh, okay,
Go back,
yeah,
so they
yep.
can get back to session. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, guys, Danny and I are just walking around the Capitol, and so we just stepped into the cafeteria here to visit with you guys.
Okay.
So, Danny, I was unable to make it to the meeting on Monday, about watersheds, about Senate Bill 2276, and so, I'll let Danny talk about that meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of give you an update. So, had a really good meeting with about a dozen legislators and Commissioner Goring about this particular bill. I had worked with Kale and Sean Frederick and Jack on a amendment that would change 2276, but I think still get to some of the issues that legislators are looking to try to solve. So if you'll remember, a lot of the conversation at the legislative level has been about establishing watershed boards, or looking at managing water at a watershed level in order to reduce issues across county lines. And obviously there's a lot of reasons why that causes some difficulties for us. So the way we approached the meeting with legislators was trying to solve that issue on a more project-based level. So the language that we offered removes all the mandates to join basin boards and removes references to watershed boards and puts that mandate within the existing code regarding project boards. So if this language would be adopted, it would say that if you have a project that crosses county lines, all the counties within that project area would be required to join a project board, and that the project board would kind of run that project. The issue that we've seen with some areas is unwillingness of certain counties to participate in that process. And so we looked at ways to try to encourage that participation, and there's two additional pieces of language in there. One clarifies that it's the county's responsibility to process assessments that have been approved by the project board. And the second piece would allow the project board to sue a county that's not participating and not processing those assessments. And then it gives the court the ability to assess legal fees if the project board prevails in that suit. So pitched that to legislators on Monday. Everybody thought that that was a good approach, and it is being drafted by legislative council by the bill sponsor, Senator Lewick, right now. That bill hasn't been scheduled for a hearing yet, but it might be up next week. And I did tell Senator Lewick that on behalf of the Water Resource Districts Association, I'd be happy to be there to walk through the amendment and kind of explain what we're looking to do and the problems we're trying to solve. So that's kind of where we're at on that particular piece of legislation.
Okay. Cause this would be a whole lot easier to manage than what Senator Lewick has been trying to push for the last 3 years.
Yes.
Cause it has some defined ways of doing things with it. How about the ag groups? Can we get them to push for this as well?
I think we've got a really good relationship with the ag organizations here at the Capitol. They've been helping us on a lot of different water-related issues. And so I think we certainly can talk with them, and if we feel like that is helpful in the conversation, I think they'd be willing to have that conversation with us.
I think more the merrier on this subject.
Danny, this is Caleb Ember, and that's really great news that Commissioner Luke was receptive to it.
Yes.
Was there a discussion about then what to do with this concept of continuing to study managing water at the watershed level, or where is that piece of this at?
Yeah, so I acknowledged that, this is a different approach than kind of the watershed discussion that we've had for the past couple sections. And I said that if the legislature is still interested in moving forward with that type of conversation, a study is absolutely the only way to do that. And that water resource districts wanted to be at the table for that conversation. I did testify on the study bill that has been proposed by Senator Weber and just laid out some of the questions that I think the study needs to look at, including how does this impact not only water resource districts in the eastern part of the state, but in the western and the central part of the state as well. There's a lot of water resource districts that never manage a drain project, and that's really what this watershed idea has been focused around. And so we want to make sure that anything that moves forward is going to work for all parts of the state. And there's got to be a lot of conversations about board makeup and funding. So I think there's still an appetite to move forward with the study, but the conversation did shift a little bit to, well, if we have this project board model, maybe we can also evaluate how things are working at that level, and if it's working well, then maybe that's the way we go. So I think that should the study bill pass and the study be picked to be studied, I think that it would also be an opportunity to showcase how water management could work at project level.
And I don't think that Senator Lewick realizes the size of these watersheds compared to what Minnesota is, because I don't remember where I saw the map for the watershed areas in Minnesota, but they are really small compared to what he is trying to do. And
yeah, and that's one of the conversations we had. I was grateful the Ag Commissioner hosted that meeting on Monday, and so he offered, I think, a lot of really good insight, both from the ag perspective and also from his seat sitting on the Water Commission. And we talked about the difficulty in trying to decide what a watershed means, because there are a lot of different levels of watershed. And I think that was unfortunately before Senator Lewick was there, but I think there was a lot of acknowledgement from the other legislators that that's an issue we would have to take a look at.
Mm-hmm. And a question for Danny, Mr. Chair. What was the department's feedback on the proposal?
The amendment?
Yeah.
DWR supports the amendment. They had one additional clarification that they wanted to make that I think doesn't really impact us at all. And so appreciate them taking a look at it, and I think they would support the amendment as well, which is a great place to be.
okay. Anybody have any questions on this? Well, thanks Danny and Jack for giving us that update. Appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, wish us luck. We're gonna be in here in an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Alrighty. That takes care of our legislative updates, I would think. Okay, back to the Rocky Run Joint Water Board meeting this afternoon. Go ahead, Kale, explain what Foster County did.
So at yesterday's meeting, Foster County discussed this proposal to delegate to the chair of the Rocky Run Joint Board some authority to spend funds in an emergency situation without needing to call a special meeting. They discussed the $12,000 proposal, but their concern was just that in these current economic times, that doesn't go very far. And so they passed a motion directing their delegate to the joint board, which is Doug Zink, to support at this afternoon's meeting, delegating to whoever the chair of the Rocky Run Joint Board is, the authority to spend up to, I believe it was $21,000 total.
Right.
And if that's shared, then there was discussion over, well, how is that shared? Is it 60-30-10? And I did explain that, you know, if you take the time to sit down and read the joint powers agreement, I don't think it's controversial. It's very clearly written in there to be 60-30-10 for administrative expenses only, which this wouldn't be. They didn't disagree with that. And so I think in arriving at 21,000, their idea was that they would maybe pitch that it'd just be 7,000 for each of the districts. So they're gonna push for 21,000, 7,000 from each of the 3 districts.
And I did have a discussion with Doug yesterday afternoon. My concern with you know, having the chairman of that joint water board make that decision, because, you know, then he said right away, well, you know, that person would call the other person, or you know, one of the other people. I said, you can't do that, Doug, because then it's an illegal meeting right off the bat. So he agreed with me that it's easy to set up a special meeting and we just do that. Then everything's above board. We don't need to worry about anybody coming back to us. So that's what we're gonna push for this afternoon at the joint board. So, okay. Thoughts, questions? Somebody wanna make a motion that we spend, you know?
I got just a question, so, cause I just wanna cover our butts if anything happens, cause everyone gets so concerned about these meetings. So if it's an emergency meeting or a special meeting, cause don't we have to post meetings, so, and stuff like that, like so many hours in advance?
I don't think there's a time frame. No.
No, so it's, okay, I just wanna make sure, cause when it's emergency, like last time you guys had to, I can't remember where it was, we had to fill that, you had to do it now, otherwise we were gonna lose the road. If we would've lost the road, then it would've been a whole thing downstream. I just wanna, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as we're fine there.
Cause Tammy's the secretary. I would, you know, whoever the chair is of the Rocky Run Joint Board would contact Tammy, call a special meeting, and then she would post it, you know, with the auditor here, send it to the paper, and do the same with the other 2 counties.
Okay.
So, then we got our bases all covered. So, what are you guys' thoughts on the $7,000 deal?
Well, my question was, I thought we talked about this 60-30-10 thing before, not just administrative, correct? Last year? No?
Was that in the meeting minutes to?
So we talked about it, because
But we never really did
Eddie
it.
County is under the impression it's for everything, and that's the way it's always been for projects.
Correct.
In the past, it's always been that way for projects, but.
Yes.
we've
So
decided that's not.
emergencies, doesn't matter,
Well, it
it's,
shouldn't be for projects at all.
You know, it shouldn't be for projects, period.
right.
It's just administrative only, and we've explained that to them in the past, but, and that discussion's gonna come up today. I guess one quick question, who's all gonna be able to come today for that meeting? Okay, anybody else?
Truck sitting right up there, so.
Well, that's yours, okay. Tom, are you gonna go over,
I can if I have to.
Guess what, you're gonna have
Kevin's having babies.
Unless you're gonna go over and do my job, so. I can't get away, I have to get back.
Okay, just keep things going here. Somebody wanna make a motion for the $7,000, our share?
And that's emergency fund only?
Yep.
Now what we're doing there is we're raising the 12,500 to 21.
Yeah.
Our share would be
7,000 for each county.
Yep.
I'll vote.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
You wanna add with a special meeting, right?
Yes.
And then determination with,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, now the 60-30-10, it's gonna come up, I'm assuming today again. Obviously, we don't have to do that. And I'm assuming that if Kenny Rice is there, he's gonna say, well, that's the way it was. Well, they weren't doing it properly back in the day. I thought about this, you know, obviously, you know, we've got 2 drains that drain into the Rocky Run. Of course, we got the Rocky Run itself. And all along that Rocky Run, there is guys draining into that all the way through Foster County, Eddy County, all the way to the river. I don't think we should be responsible for taking care of 60% of the cost of, actually, you know, that was originally, that 60-30-10 was for administrative only. They used it in upgrading the system. Well, the system's been upgraded. I don't think we're responsible for doing any maintenance on beyond our assessed drain either now, correct?
Right, yeah, the JPA is there so that if there are future projects, they could be taken to the drain board. But the only project is Oak Creek, and the authority by the JPA was delegated to this board, so.
I think
There's no project over Rocky Run. You have authority to do like maintenance, cause it's a natural water course, but ad hoc, right, if you so choose because of issues come up. But no, there's no ongoing drain or project that you're obligated to maintain.
Okay. So that'll be the stance that we take this afternoon. Everybody's good with that?
You're the only one that can vote.
Yeah. Unless I get run over by the beer truck on the way over, then it's up to you.
Agreed, didn't
I can bring cookies if I need to get you there.
Okay, let's move on to the bill section. Apex Engineering. Somebody wanna make a motion for that? Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, and no Rinky Noonan bill, okay?
I'll make a motion for that one.
It didn't take him long to jump on that one, did it? Wells County Recorder, $30.
And those are for the maps I made for the commissioners.
Yeah. So, somebody wanna make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Devin made the motion, somebody second it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
And then I have one more, it's called In Situ, and that's for the Hertzfield drain, it's the monitoring.
Okay, anyway, we gotta vote on this,
Okay.
all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Now the bill for the monitoring system for the,
It's $264, it's the subscription fee, correct, Thomas? Yes.
okay, somebody wanna make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, somebody second it?
264, you said, right?
Yep.
Second? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, I do believe that, we got everything covered. Oh,
I don't know if you saw that.
no,
Oh, yeah, I've read it.
Oh, did you, okay.
does any comments, anybody wanna say anything about?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a question. On the agenda, it said that the Hertzfield drain loan has been paid for.
The one at the bank, but they still owe the general fund. I paid the bank one off first because it was 5% interest, so they still owe the general fund $318,318.
So that came from the general fund to pay off the,
No,
No.
it came out of the Hertzfield taxes to pay off the loan at the bank. But we had some money taken out of the general when we started this, before we got the loan and before we got cost share and everything like that. We were borrowing some of the money from our general fund.
so the assessment will remain the same?
Correct, for the next, I think there's 10 years left, 11 years left, I think.
At the 5% rate?
Right, because then that goes towards maintenance too. Cause I think we dropped the loan to what, 2.5, Jeff Johnson finally drop it too?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so the other remaining 2.5 is for maintenance.
So then the assessment will reflect the 2.5% interest rate or not?
Well, no, it'll stay at the current, I have to look at that, it'll stay at the current level because there's a maintenance built into it also. And to
But
pay
isn't
the,
that part of O&M?
that's all part of that. Because we have to pay for, Northern Plains Electric, any attorney fees yet, engineering, anything down there that we have to do yet.
And when that interest rate dropped, it just paid off the loan that much quicker.
Right.
Thank you.
I couldn't hear what he said. Okay.
Oh,
He said
okay.
thank you.
Okay, alrighty. Okay, any comments or anything on, last week's commissioner meeting?
It's kind of exciting reading Harvey Herald this week.
Should watch the video. I did.
Front page, right?
Yeah.
It was, yeah, I've heard some, positive comments. I think Devin, you have as well. After Saturday's paper come out, I got some text messages. And, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens from there. Hopefully that's the end of that. So we don't need to wasting time and energy with that. So, okay, I guess I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn. Second. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.